So, thank you. I'm super, super excited. 30 days and I'm on an airplane. Yay. So can't wait to be with you all. Abiding in truth is the essence of the retreat, and it's been apparently the essence of this week as well. So I thought it might be useful to just kind of say a little bit about what that means to me, abiding in truth. And it kind of resonates from what Doreen was saying as well, which was, I only caught the last few minutes of that, but it was powerful. This willingness to be uncomfortable, this willingness to feel something that perhaps we would rather not feel when the rest of our entire life perhaps might be focused on feeling better. Our awakening paradoxically can be the opposite to that. It can be developing, cultivating a willingness to feel an emotion that we would rather not deal with, or feel a sensation or in the body, or feel a tension, a tightness, experience something that we would rather resist or that we have resisted. So abiding in truth for me was a choice to develop this deeper willingness, which is already inside us. It's not something that we have to make happen, but a willingness to really stand in the power inside us that is able to go through anything, from the best to the worst human experience we could have, from the best feeling we could have to the worst feeling. And when we call upon that inherent power that we have, that we are the infinite being appearing as a human being, we have all kinds of resources that are not available to our mind, to our separate sense of self who we thought we were. So just developing this willingness, how do we do that? Just by wanting to, an intense burning desire to live as the truth, which we all have here, else we wouldn't be in the sanctuary here, well, tonight here in the UK. We wouldn't be interested in awakening. And I think a lot of that involves courage at first, to go against what everyone else would say is correct. And Doreen touched upon this, when the rest, when your friends ask you how you're getting on in your awakening and how's your meditation going, and when 6 months down the path or even a year, your mind is still noisy when we're in meditation, and we might not be feeling at least the things that we want to feel. We might be feeling the things that we have to feel. Does that necessarily equal something going wrong in our awakening, or could it be something going really, really right? And it's important to bring this to the surface. I've had many conversations about this week alone, and it was one of the more challenging aspects for me, is to come to a point where I was willing to be with fear or anger or worse still, shame, things that I really did not want to feel, and had, well, I was going to say managed to successfully avoid, but that wasn't even true, actually. I'd just been really, really resisting it as a someone when I thought I was a someone. And mustering up the courage to feel these things, to willingly go towards and allow these things to come up, was very challenging at first, until I kind of realized that avoiding them simply wasn't working. There was just fear and fear and fear and fear. And the more I felt it and resisted it, the longer it seemed to last. So finally, when I was out of all other options, I tried every spiritual tool I had to deal with these emotions, these contractions, these situations in my life that really didn't seem to resolve. Then I finally, back against the wall, had to try surrendering to it, to be with it, to allow this thing to be felt in my body. And it's perhaps one of the simplest things we could ever do, to feel what we're feeling willingly, and yet perhaps the most difficult for a human being. But once you break through that and do it the very first time, something quite amazing begins to happen. You begin to realize, as I did, that I wasn't really suffering from the emotion anyway. I was actually suffering because I was resisting, pushing away, not wanting to be with this thing. That was what was causing me to feel suffering. That's what suffering is. Not the thing itself, but the way that I'm handling it, holding it. And as a separate being, as a someone, as a person that I thought I was, I had two modes of being with things. And one was to push away what I thought I didn't want to experience, to resist it with everything I've got. Didn't actually get rid of it ever, not once. Might have stored it away to come back up again with increased intensity. But even that was delayed because my resisting it didn't even let it flow. And then to hold on to, try to keep what I did want to experience. And these were the kind of the two, I've called it before, this push-pull mechanism of my separate sense of someone. If I hold on to what I like and push away what I don't like, that's the way to peace and happiness and joy. And it really never worked. So this willingness to flip that on its head, to go towards what I did not want to experience, and conversely, to just kind of let happen and not grab at the thing that I did want to happen. So peace, joy, bliss, love, contentment, all of those things. So that's a major definition for me of abiding in truth. And what that really means is to live authentically to whatever is arising in this moment. Am I conscious of the fact that I'm running away from something or running towards something in this very human instinct that we all have to feel better, to move away from pain towards something more pleasurable? And here in awakening, that doesn't actually work. Paradoxically, the more I run towards something that I have labeled as unpleasant, the more peace I am going to feel, because all of the energy that I'm expending trying to push this thing away, separating myself from it, I don't want this, it needs to leave. All that energy then is suddenly available to just sit here. And there's this kind of stopping of this push-pull in that moment where the whole seeking mechanism of trying to get to some better feeling place just stops. First time that happened, there was this peace and stillness for me that I never really experienced before. I'd thought about it, felt a tiny bit of contentment, but never for more than a minute or so at a time. But to stop this push-pull just for a moment and have this deep, rich, cascading kind of peace that was uncaused. It didn't have any reason other than I wasn't using that energy for anything else. And it hit me in that moment that it's never about my mind or my body or what they're experiencing in that moment. It's only ever really about whether I'm being with what is. And that I'd never really suffered from shame or fear or anger. I'd only ever suffered from trying to push those things away. And it just turned everything around. I can't emphasize enough how the simple things in awakening are the most powerful, because those are the things we can actually apply, and they actually work in those moments. You know, when you're feeling a strong negative emotion, it's overwhelming your system, and there is this kind of intensity of energy that's flowing. Sometimes the only thing we can do when we get to that point is to let go of resisting, because something inside intuitively knows that the way to peace is to stop doing that. Or if something resists fear or anger, can I just let that be? Something's going to say no, and I can say yes. And I always have that final word as the infinite self, as the one being, as the cosmic universal self that's everywhere. I always have that capacity to have the last word, to kind of override the push-pull mechanism. Once I realize I have that capacity, then I can always apply it. So right now, let's do this. Right now, let's just check in and see, what are we actually feeling? Is it something, what does your body feel? How does it feel? What is your mind doing? Is it quiet, or is it still, or is it noisy? If it's something unpleasant that you would rather not feel, if there's a tension in the body or some kind of negative emotion or something coming up that is what you would label as not wanted or unpleasant, can you just for a moment stop pushing against it and just let it exist in its fullness? And there's no perfect end with that. There's just, can I let this be here right now in this moment? Can I let it exist like it wants to? Because has it really worked pushing it away to make yourself feel better? Has it really brought us the infinite peace that we're searching for? I mean, really, when we look at this mechanism, this push-pull, is it actually working for bringing us what we really desire, which is happiness, safety, peace, love, respect, and all of those things? And if you're feeling something pleasant, if you're feeling a lot of peace right now, or even joy, or love, or bliss, can you just not hold on to that? Not need it to stay. Just be very open with it. And noticing as you do that, there's inherently this kind of stopping that happens. It's just coming to be with whatever is being felt right now. And in that, you kind of find what's real about you. There's something within you that has this capacity already to be with what is. So just for a few minutes, I'm not going to push against anything. Whatever wants to be felt inside me, I will allow it to exist. Even though I might previously have not done this, I can do this at any moment. And all of this energy then that is being used to resist this moment, to push against what is, to push away the unpleasant, to grab a hold of the pleasant, is suddenly available right here, and it's immediately manifests as peace, contentment. And this for me was really powerful, because I began to see that peace was always available. Even when fear or shame or physical pain or tension in the body or a lack of something I need, money, time, energy, whatever, health, peace was always available. And that really what I wanted wasn't actually for this fear to go away. If I was really honest, this tension, this fear, this lack experience, I just wanted to feel peaceful, actually. And if I choose that first, if I choose peace first, then whatever I was resisting, the emotion, the situation, the experience, the thoughts, begin to change on their own anyway. So by trying to push this thing away to get peace, it's never worked. By choosing peace now, by stopping resisting, this, whatever this is for each one of us is different. It begins to change. And I don't know about you, but when I got this, when I really got this, I felt excited again for the first time in a long time. I felt inspired. I felt empowered. And yet it was going to take some practicing. But I was finally not scared of my emotions. The first time ever, perhaps, that I remember. Just almost even being excited about whatever the next emotion was that was going to come up. Almost, not quite. But knowing that here, the emotions are going to bring me peace, paradoxically, because I can stop resisting. And then not even waiting for something to come up, just like, am I being with this moment as it is now? And I noticed the more and more I kind of hung out there, it was more and more peace. All these little pockets of energy that I was using, my energy to kind of push against this and grab and try to keep this moment right as I wanted it to be, you know, like that over here and this over here and that bit goes there, and like this jigsaw puzzle. When this person does this thing that I want and I get that thing and I feel this way and my mind is doing this, then I'll be peaceful. And of course, if you ever manage to get it that way, it lasts for like 2 nanoseconds and then changes again. So we can just hang out here in this peace now by choosing to just stop resisting. Even if what you're feeling is resistance, restlessness, irritability, can you just let that exist inside you? Just give it a yes. Give it a nod. You're okay to be here. And it's the simplest of things, isn't it? And yet it is the most effective thing. And from that point forward, I found that any time I was suffering, it was only because I was resisting or pushing against what is, or holding on to, because the more I did this, the more beautiful my experience became. And there were some areas I really had to not push against before it started to turn around. But again, that got easier and easier, recognizing that that has never worked to bring me joy and peace and safety, feel safe. But I felt safe here, home in this that just is. And it felt like I was gathering back to myself, all these parts of me, like my whole psyche had been so fragmented, trying to be trying to hold together this image of reality that I thought I needed to be happy. So if there's something here for you, then you can choose to live like this. Just every moment that you remember, stopping, feeling, noticing what you're feeling, noticing if you're resisting it, or trying to hold on to it, if it's a beautiful experience. And little by little, all the energy we've had invested in this push-pull mechanism, which is about 95% of our life force, it's no small thing, suddenly becomes available, freed up, and immediately shows up as peace, love, contentment, a real deep joy, and an innocence and an awe, and a deep and abiding curiosity about life. First, just a little bit of peace, contentment, but as you keep doing it, it just keeps or keep choosing it. So life just becomes stop. And then you start again, and then you stop. You check in and you stop. And then you're off and running again before you realize, so you stop again. And the moment your body begins to tell you you're off and running, you're pushing against, you can just, oh, yeah, let me stop. And even with some really strong emotion going through the system, it can just go through the system then. It doesn't get caught up anywhere. It doesn't get stuck in any of the meridians or the chakras or whatever tissues of the body. You can't get lodged there. And even better, things that have been lodged for years begin to move as well and release. So there was no other big secret than this, really. And it wasn't even a secret. I've been hearing teachers say this over and over again, but couldn't quite get it until I could. So let's just, I'll open it up for questions in a moment. There's just 1 or 2 more minutes of just checking in, feeling what you're feeling. What does your body feel? Has it shifted since you've been doing this? Have the vibrations, the emotions, the sensations become different since you've just been allowing? Even just a little. Now, can you imagine doing this for a whole day, or a whole month, or a whole year, or a whole lifetime? That life was then seen to be working with you, showing you what you still try to push away or grab a hold of. And the grabbing a hold of for me was perhaps the most challenging one, because as the experiences began to get more and more beautiful, then something as I want to keep that. I want to keep that bliss, that joy, that peace. I want to keep it. I want to hold on to it. So there's a stopping even there. Just let me, if peace wants to go, can I let it go? And really zooming in on my experience in that moment. If I try to hold on to it, it evaporates through my fingers anyway. Same with love, same with joy, same with even bliss. If I try to hold on to abundance or sense of well-being or anything, it disappears. So undoing this push-pull is easier when you realize it doesn't actually work. It doesn't actually work. It never has. Like 38 years old at the time, still feeling the same intense fear that I was feeling in my very first memory as a child, this intense fear. Same fear. And everything I'd done in those 38 years, every technique I'd learned, hadn't actually done anything with it. And it's like 38 years of finding ever more subtle ways to push away this fear, disguise this spiritual practice, you know. And coming to the end of that road was sweet relief, where I had no more tools or techniques left to, finally I had to be with it. And one day, life forced my hand. Excuse me. Life forced my hand because the fear was just so incredibly strong one day. It was the best day of my life and also the worst day. It was so strong, this fear, and it was just, my whole body was shaking and I couldn't talk, or I was sweating and my heart was racing. It was just like that. It was like there's no way I could keep resisting it. I was exhausted. So life had to push me into it because I'd asked for full awakening. So hopefully you can make a conscious choice so life doesn't have to do that, doesn't have to, or maybe you've already experienced it. And the fear gets more intense and more difficult to be with, or whatever emotion we're feeling, and physical pain too, the more that we resist it, the worse it gets, because it can't flow then. So just checking in one last time. Noticing if you have been subtly pushing against again or grabbing a hold of something. Not blaming yourself. It's just a really, really old habit, isn't it, to do that? And if you are, just stopping. And this is literally being the self, being the infinite being. This is it. I can just be that in which everything is arising, or I can be that imagined self that is pushing and pulling. One is effortless, and one is eternal effort. One feels peaceful and calm and still, and the other is suffering constantly to varying degrees. So if anyone would like to ask a question or to share your experience of what we've just done, or if you've been doing that for a while, I'd love to hear from you. If you have any challenges or breakthroughs, I'd also love to hear. Just feel free to raise your hand or unmute, and it'd be lovely to hear from you. Nobody ever wants to be the first, right? Laurel?
I have to say that it took me a long time to develop any willingness to feel feelings that were so painful. And I think because I had repressed them and pushed them away for so long, it just felt like there was, it just felt endless.
Yeah.
And when I would allow myself and be willing to feel something, whatever that was, it was slippery. The one feeling that my go-to feeling was sadness. I mean, I could be sad and feel that ad infinitum. But anger and fear, it's like I couldn't hold on to them. When I wanted to transmute and just be with them, something, and I said I was willing, and I felt like I was willing. But I think the pattern and the habit of avoiding the feelings was so strong that whatever the mechanism was, they would just evaporate.
I think a lot of people tend to be scared of anger as well, right? We've had some programming around anger, that it's a dangerous emotion or something, that's going to get me into trouble, or if I feel it, I'm going to do something or say something. So my own journey, and a lot of people I've come across, they've had this conditioning, perhaps might be too strong a word, or maybe not, that anger is just not an acceptable emotion to express in a family situation as well. Fear or even shame, but not anger or something like that.
Well, I never heard anger in the house that I was growing up in. I think my parents made a decision that they were going to keep their anger from the children. And so how that played out for me was that whenever I would be around the anger energy, I would get scared stiff because I didn't know, I just felt so threatened by it.
Yeah.
And that's been the hardest one for me to access.
I think shame and even sadness, they have this, anger is a very dynamic, moving thing, isn't it? And sadness and shame and all of that, they have this very disempowering frequency to them. We feel weaker when we feel them, we feel less energetic. And so ironically, they can even make us feel safer in a weird backwards kind of way if we're scared of this powerful energy of anger. That's a very outward move, and sometimes it turns upon the self, but sometimes it's outwards. But it's a very powerful energy. I often found it easier to feel ashamed because it felt safer, because it was only focused inwards rather than outwards, you know. So it took a while to turn that around.
Since I had this seeing that I had last week, where I really did have that experience that, you know, I've been hoping to have, which is, you know, really seeing that everything that I have thought and felt and done was not really a personal self.
Yeah.
It wasn't mine, you know, and I really did see that. And now when I'm checking in for feelings, like I'm wondering, where do they go? I don't have that. And I don't feel, you know, I just feel calm right now. My body feels calm, but I mean, I had so much stored up in me, within, it felt like. I mean, and I literally felt like there was like a weight in my mind that just evaporated.
Yeah. Because
so,
if it's not your shame now, it never has been.
Yeah.
Never. And it goes right back through your entire existence and wipes the slate clean in that. And from seeming overwhelming and so much of this stuff to process, it can just literally no longer be relevant, actually. Because they were all stories about someone who didn't exist. Like all these stories about ourselves. They're all hanging on this belief that this is my issue to deal with. This is my shame, my fear, my anger.
So is it the collectives, you know, the one mind and the one, I mean, I guess there's one mind and probably one emotional body as well. So what seemed to leave my mind, did it go, is it in somebody else's now? I mean, or did it disappear? I mean, I don't know.
If you take that emotional body as a whole, like for the whole of this species of human beings,
yeah,
what you realized, it didn't just happen in that body there. What you realized was a universal event. So you've shifted the whole emotional body. Each person that does it, it's a universal, non-local thing. And that's why it's exciting. It's because the only thing that keeps, if there's only one mind and one set of karmic patterns, let's say, then the only thing that keeps us suffering is the belief that these are mine. I take what is universal and hold on to it here and say, this is mine to deal with. And then we fail every time at trying to transmute this because we can't when we're trying to do it as a me, a separate being. And then the moment we realize, oh, no wonder I failed, it's just, you know. So you then transmit, you broadcast this thought form throughout the whole human consciousness that says, this is not my issue. None of these stories were real. So instead of adding to that burden, you're suddenly turning that around in quite a powerful way. Exciting.
Yeah, it was quite a surprise to have that experience of all that shame, because I had so much shame, and to just literally feel like it, disappeared.
And then when your mind tells the same old story, it just has no, they're just empty words, aren't they?
Well, it goes on repeat. You know, it just keeps
rather than
playing.
having this, you know, this kind of real trigger, you know, moment inside where there's this real energetic response to these words. They're just words. Then they still go on for a while, but they don't have any power to them anymore, because or life will show you something. Oh, this is what I still think is mine to fix. The next thing it'll show you is where you're holding on to stories somewhere else. Not necessarily the shame story, but some other equally believed thing. Yeah. But it's easier and easier then, because you're clearer and clearer. Oh, that's not mine either. And neither is that one. It's just more like that then. It's like dominoes then, you know, it's, yeah. So good. So good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to share something, or Doreen?
Hi, Helen.
Hi.
Always nice to see you.
Nice to talk to you. I feel like we haven't spoken in ages.
I know. Thank you for continuing the teaching on resistance.
I had to. What you were saying was just so powerful. It was,
I appreciate that. And normally I would be gone now because I really should be working, but I wanted to continue on listening, and I'm glad I did, because something is shifting. Well, first, before I talk about that, I really appreciate you saying, like, you thought that you were suffering from, for example, shame, but you were really suffering from the resistance to shame. And so that's been kind of sitting with me as I'm listening to you. And I'm not sure when you came in my sharing earlier, but I, over the last week or so, have just been sitting with this energy of shame, not of shame, of resistance, or the kind of being observant of when I'm resisting and just choosing to feel that. So last week was an experience where it was like pretty intense resistance, and I just decided to sit with it. And the image that came up for me was, I'm sitting somewhere, and when any circumstances in my environment, whether it's a conversation, a person, or whatever, that I feel I can't handle, like I'm resisting it, right? Mm-hmm. These men show up in line with rifles ready to shoot and attack. Yeah. Okay. And so even in my sharing just, an hour ago, I was sharing how these men with rifles are blocking the situation, the person, from entering into my field. But as I'm sitting with this, I'm realizing they're blocking the emotion that I am to experience. Mm. And it's not anything to do with the outside of what's happening or what I'm seeing is causing it. It's not. It's they are instigating the resistance. You know, it's like they're blocking the emotion. And so it's almost, I'm setting out a signal. I don't want to experience this, so stop it. Yeah. And so that's what they're blocking. And so that's a whole different way of me being with that imagery now, because I've been sitting with that imagery and just like what it will reveal. So I guess I thank you for just sharing that, because I can feel that something is shifting.
And it gets a lot easier then, doesn't it? Because instead of trying to resist the outside world or whatever's going on, it's like really only about how much we're, you know, they're lined up against this emotion. The emotion becomes the enemy then that we've got to protect against, and that's more within our control, isn't it? Then if it's really only about how much I'm resisting that, then it's different. You can do something about that. Then you're back in the driving seat, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There was also a sharing, in this imagery, seemingly there's this role that I played that thinks that I'm like that I have nothing to do with what's going on. So blink, it's like I'm not the one that's pushing it away, almost like, not that I'm guilty, but there's this thing's like, I have nothing to do with this. Just stop it, please.
Yeah.
And now I'm realizing, like you said, that I do have something to do with it. I do have some level of, I don't know if the word is control, but I can now own how to be with it.
Mm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, just, I don't want to have anything to do with this, deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of all we had at first, wasn't it? That's like all we ever learned. Just sort it out for me. I don't know what to do with this. But
right.
Especially the deeper our awakening goes, the less. I mean, that actually becomes the issue then, rather than fixing anything. It's
right.
Yeah. So it's a huge when you see that, isn't it? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's a simple shift, but the most powerful one, really, in terms of how you be with these things. Then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So thank you.
Thank you. Hope I didn't make you late for work.
I'm good.
Good. Nice to speak to you. Joy?
Hi, thank you so
Hi.
much. This is incredibly beautiful. And what I'm learning so much is that these layers of defense, and I love Doreen's sharing of the image that she was given about these protective layers. And what's my understanding, what my teacher, Jesus is my teacher, who's saying that in the identity is very well protected by these hidden desires to have some of these egoic feeling experiences. And I say that very, very gently. And I love how Doreen was saying, it's like there's a fear of actually letting the feelings be felt, and that conditioning that we've given to ourselves to not reveal these layers. What's your experience of that, of just that then that final identity concept is released once we allow these all to be felt in a really loving space? And I just want to thank you again for how loving you are, Helen. Thank you.
Yeah, it was for me, my old identity was literally made up of all the places I was pushing against. All the places I was telling these guys, go stand here and defend me. That was it was made up of all of that, and just watching it dissolve bit by bit as I saw, oh yeah, I don't need to do it with that emotion. And actually it became quite simple then. Like, it was literally just fear. So I was scared of feeling my emotions. Like, I wasn't actually struggling with shame or anger. It was fear of those things, and it was fear of other people, and fear of life, and then fear of death. And when I actually saw what was making up this separate someone, it was just a big ball of fear. And then added on top of that some unworthiness, for an extra scoop of unworthiness. And then it's kind of oh my goodness, that's fear. But it became quite simple then. Okay, if I'm scared of these things, then the antidote in a way must be to actually dissolve that separate self, must be just to go towards what I would rather move away from on some level. And that's a very simple thing to do, but to do it consistently, to feel what I'm feeling, or even just meeting someone in the street and actually talking to them rather than avoiding a conversation. Maybe all you say is hi or something, you know, but just those moments where we'd naturally move away rather than towards. That's all my identity was as a someone, all the places I was avoiding things out of fear. And it just got easier to turn those around. And I realized that is what love does. It moves towards what the ego, the separate self, wants to avoid. And an ego can't do anything different. It's not its fault. It just can't really love in that same way that the real self can, the infinite self. And it was beautiful to watch that turn around. Here I would normally avoid this. What happens when I move towards it and want to be with it, which is really what love is, isn't it? Can I be with this thing? So the simplest of things, but it made total difference in my awakening. Total difference.
Thank you. Yeah. Right now, I'm just looking directly at this belief, like the shame around experiencing fear. And I laugh because, you know, like I'll do incredible things in the world. But that fear of that really personal engagement in some ways, and just letting that, just seeing that there's a ploy in the subconscious around convincing me that it's shameful to experience fear. Sorry about the bird.
Yeah. That's okay. Yeah. Fear about shame and shame about fear. It's one of those endless loops, isn't it? In the end, it's but the more we see who we really are, that just gently overrides the power of that mechanism. So it's just eventually you can't avoid, even if you still want to. You just find yourself moving towards whatever we've been avoiding. And I was ultimately very surprised when I'm moving towards some real rich, deep negative emotion. Here I am feeling it, and this willingness is there, and I'm like, wow, something's really shifting here. So you don't even have to battle that. It'll just melt away. It's just this desire to want to be intimate with what is, which is really what the real self wants to do. Can I just want to be willing? Even I can always want to be willing, even if I'm not willing right now. It's such a soft and lovely way into we don't have to fight anything or battle anything. It's not really what it's about anymore now, is it? It's more like a softening. And that's just it's a melting, isn't it, that's going on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to talk to you. Would anyone else like to share something or ask a question? Peggy? Hi.
Hi. So I'm just going to cry again because
that's okay. Maybe we'll cry together.
I wasn't going to cry when I came on, but your talk, and I feel you talking from my heart, and I don't know what to do with that. Like I feel that resistance to feeling love. Like I feel you, and I feel my body contracting around it. And And when I sit live with you, I just
You know, if you notice, Peggy, you're doing it anyway.
yeah.
So even the resistance isn't really, can we just love that and go, it's just an old contraction, isn't it? It's just an old habit that we don't actually need to battle anymore. And in time, my body will get the message too, that it's safe to love. It's safe. It's okay. Love is infinitely patient, isn't it? But also really urgent. It's happening anyway right now, even with our resistance. It's still here.
Yes. I mean, when you said to turn towards which you're trying to resist, I thought, okay.
That is love. That's love in action. It's love that says, okay, let me give this a go. It's not really going to be the separate self, because it can't do that. So no fault of its own. It is just a push-pull mechanism. That's all it is, really. And we're already letting love emerge, and maybe we're just realizing that. So, and that love emerging is what dissolves the contractions. We don't even need to handle that process. It's already in motion. Nothing can stop awakening when it's happening. Absolutely nothing.
And yes, and I feel it much. I feel it so much. Well, it's not quite right to say that, but I feel the oneness that with you and the group when I'm with you. Of course, I mean, I feel it quite. Things have been changing in my life since I met you, but I feel something I have never experienced in my life before is I feel an adoration for you, towards you. It's not personal.
Yeah, I get it.
Personal, but it's not. And I've never been a bhakti person, and I just was like, I did not understand a guru. Like that is beyond my experience, and it makes me really happy. But it also does this.
And you know, I am only your own self. It's your own self you're falling in love with, isn't it? Really. Sometimes it's easier to kind of externalize that at first, but really it's your own heart that you're falling in love with, isn't it?
That's what I'm afraid of. Yeah.
Why? Why are you afraid?
Because of all the negative ways I've thought about myself throughout my life, like that I'm not worthy, that I don't deserve to be loved or feel love or give love.
This divine love, though, it literally doesn't care about that stuff. It will railroad through those doubts, as it is doing right now, isn't it? Yes. It doesn't even see them. It doesn't even see doubts or unworthiness that need healing. It just sees itself. It sees love. And that's why it's so powerful. Gentle, but powerful. It'll never come forth uninvited. It's coming forth because we've evoked it, asked it. It's not separate to us, but it doesn't see anything about you that needs healing or fixing. So how could it not love? It just sees the wholeness of you. That's the only way it has to function. It's only the mind that would say, when I fix these parts of me, then I'll be ready. But that's endless, isn't it? It's an endless thing. Finally, you just stop resisting this love, because it's gonna happen anyway. So, and when it washes away all those doubts, you realize there was never anything to fix about me. It was just a very convincing bad dream I had.
Yes. Thank you so much for your teachings. And yeah, I believe I get on a very experiential level, I feel the truth of what you're saying. Like I feel that so this will continue to unfold. I guess.
Nowhere to stop it now. It's way too late. Yeah.
Thank you, Helen.
Thank you. Good to talk to you. Could we quickly squeeze one more in? Do we have? Yeah, I'm getting the nod from Simon. So, Karen. I don't know where the time goes.
Yes.
Hi.
This is sort of an odd thing to say, but we talked about this. So for the last year, I've managed my overeating, and I've been feeling better, and suddenly it's come up again. And I thought maybe because I have been practicing feeling my feelings, I thought, wow, maybe I'm not allowing myself to feel the way I think I am. But then I had this insight, and this is going to sound very strange. Since I started doing the Kundalini meditation, it's released a lot of energy. I find a lot of energy coming up. Mm-hmm. And it's not bad energy at all. It doesn't make me feel sad, or I'm just not used to it. It's all of a sudden I'm thinking, what am I going to do with this this literally thinking, I don't know what to do with this energy. I can't get to sleep at night, my usual time. I'm waking up earlier.
Because you don't need as much sleep when I wasn't joking when I said 95% of ourself has been tied up in this,
resistance. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what's surprising me is I've been asking for more energy. And so it's so, I feel like it's been so long since I've had this experience that there's almost a discomfort with it. I know that sounds strange, but instead of just being like, oh, great, I've got this energy I've been asking for, I'm like, I don't know what to do with this energy.
And here is the separate self in its essence. It has to resist. Even when it gets what it wants, it has to resist somehow. Right. So you can just notice that and go, oh, it's trying to make an issue out of this now, even success, like.
Yeah. Even as I said, I don't know what to do with it. There's some part of me said, you don't remember, you're not the doer anyway.
There isn't anything to do with it.
Yeah.
But, there's a couple of nights I didn't sleep at all. Mm-hmm. And then next night I slept 10 hours, and then next night 6 hours, and then 4 hours. And some days I'd hardly eat anything. Some days I'd eat the whole kitchen. Mm-hmm. But it gradually settled into less and less sleep, and it settled into it. At first it's a little bit, as it pushes through the blockages, but it'll settle down into a nice and you won't need as much. All of the sleep we need really is to recover from the effects of believing our thoughts during that day, so to help the body. So you just don't need as much then.
Yeah, I was just surprised. I thought, oh my gosh, I literally thought you were eating to push this energy down because you just don't know what to do with it right now. It took me a while to get there, because I thought, why are you doing this? You feel good. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Same for me. Pushed it down. Ate it away many times.
Well, I understood when I was doing that with negative energy. It just sort of surprised me that this energy doesn't feel bad at all, and yet there was a discomfort to it.
It's the same. It's that same mechanism. It has to push something away or hold on to it. It can't do anything else. You just go, oh, here it is doing it here too.
Right.
It'll try it with joy. It'll try to hold on to joy. It'll try to hold on to bliss. It'll the flip side of that coin. Then
Right.
So you just notice it. You don't judge it. Oh, there it is again doing its thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll hand it back. Sorry, we ran over a moment or two, and thank you for everyone's comments and questions and sharings. Thank you, and thank you, Saina.